Despite all the construction, the road closures, the lane changes, traffic along Johnnie Dodds Boulevard is moving smoothly in both directions. The frontage roads are also undergoing major renovations, and that is affecting some businesses.
I mean, there's some few pains, but like our delivery's been doing well, and we know that eventually, hopefully, it's just going to help. It's one of those things you kind of have to go through. And, you know, luckily, I think we've got a product where people will fight for it, but it's going to get better.
Some of the restaurants along these frontage roads are actually picking up business. They're getting workers from the road crews coming in for lunch. Other businesses basically say, though, that this is just the price of progress.
We deal with, you know, the inconveniences of things, but, you know, progress is going to make this road so much better. I can't speak for other businesses, but for mine, my business is generally what it should be. We had traffic problems prior to this construction taking place, and we'll have it during the process, and hopefully we won't have it after the process. That's the goal, is to make sure once this all does this, it funnels traffic more effectively through Mount Pleasant, so, you know, the businesses and, you know, the residents can sort of, you know, get around Mount Pleasant much more conveniently.
We're here literally on the construction site of the Johnnie Dodds project. And you've heard, hopefully, or read or seen on television, the fact that there's going to be an eventual overpass. But there's some neat things that are going on here right now that is dealing with the current traffic as the project's being built. And I want you to meet my guest. He is Brad Morrison, and he's Director of Transportation for the town of Mount Pleasant. He's also an engineer, and he's going to sort of explain to us what's going on behind us and up and down this project. Brad, thanks so much for being a part of our program. I thought it was really good. You know, there's some people that have been complaining, oh, this is an inconvenience, and why are you taking on 4 projects at one time, and all this kind of thing. But you're always thinking about that, aren't you? How do we keep the traffic moving in spite of?
Absolutely. It's something that a lot of planning goes in before you even get to construction. How are we going to handle what we call maintenance of traffic? And this was well thought out beforehand. Each individual project is thought out, and then when we all under construction with all 4 of them, we continually talk about how we might affect the other projects. Right. But what you see behind you is the staging for the overpass at Bowman, and what the designers have done is they've utilized what will eventually be the ramps of that interchange, essentially bowed out around where the bridge will be in the middle, so they construct that bridge at the highest level of safety for their workers and the traveling public, and least impact the traveling public.
But what's amazing to me is that those underpasses or roundabouts, I'm sure that's not the right name for them, but they're on the side of the road, as you can see, but they're also taking care of the traffic right now during construction.
Right.
Was that intended as well?
Initially, we did not know how we were going to do that. This is a design-build project. What the designer came up with was this. He proposed this methodology to do it, and it works very well. It keeps the traffic moving. Basically, it moves the 17 traffic onto the eventual ramps. So it's temporarily using those ramps to keep traffic moving on 17. And then the side streets operate just like they did before, and it's all controlled by one signal.
Now, I know we should have probably come later or early this morning for this interview, but there is a lot of traffic that just seems like it stands still on this project in spite of what's going on here to make improvements for the public while this project is going on. Is there anything that we're going to be able to do to stop that? Well, those, you know, the bottlenecks, the traffic sort of just at a halt?
There's always going to be those temporary interruptions to traffic flow based upon, you know, people moving across the road and things of that nature. But we're doing as much as we can within the project limits to minimize those delays and such. And this is one of them. And you know, there's no daytime lane closures on this project. So the contractor can't just shut down a lane on 17, and then we'd really have problems. I mean, this was a heavily congested area prior to construction. We're minimizing the delays during construction, but I can tell you one thing, when this is over, you won't have the congestion you had out here that was just 8-10 months ago.
And the 4th of July just passed us, and I understand that nobody was working here then. Or did you have workers out here at that time?
activity of
Yeah.
them. Normally, a lot of times contractors take the week off of July 4th because you're not allowed to. Actually, DOT has a policy where you cannot perform construction because of the potential to delay.
And the other thing that attempts to make a convenience for the public is the fact that these folks normally work at night.
Correct. Now,
And that the intention there is there's less.
there's less traffic for them to contend with. That's safer for them. And the real objective there is to really minimize the delay for the public. You know, if you got 40,000 vehicles a day using this, during the day, it's 35,000 of it's happening between 7 in the morning and 8 at night clocks. So it's a way for them to minimize the delays to the public.
Do you ever think about how Mount Pleasant is growing? And it's growing tremendously with businesses and homes and the like and institutions of all kinds. Do you ever have nightmares about what this traffic is going to look like 10 years from now?
I don't. This town's been very proactive in carrying out the projects that it planned for. Started 10, 15 years ago. We're probably really one of the few that are able to do that. We've been very blessed in that regard, regarding funding. But no, I think in another 10 years, this is going to be a fantastic place to live. We are going to have very good mobility.
What about mass transit? Do you think that's
it's a key element?
Is that enough? Something we need these days?
Absolutely, we need it. In fact, all of our projects, we consider where we can place stops for
Really?
corridor and stuff.
That's
Now, because we're not going to be able to keep growing and at least stay in where we're all in vehicles without considering that.
Is it true that there are going to be walkways out here?
All the frontage roads will have sidewalks and bike lanes for the entire length. That's over 7 miles of sidewalks on both sides of the road and bike lanes.
And how about roundabouts?
No roundabouts on this project, but we have plenty of them in the town. We love them. They
Mount
work very
Pleasant
well.
loves roundabouts. They certainly do. Now, this project is fairly extensive, not just the Johnnie Dodds project, but I'm talking about when you put in the other projects as well. It's fairly extensive. Talk briefly about the other projects and how far up do they go, north and then south?
Sure. One of them's right here next to us. It was the first phase of Bowman Road, which is from Mathis Ferry up to this interchange. The town completed that project about 4 or 5 months ago. So that was coordinated well with this project. Just north of here, we're going to widen the road and add another interchange at Hungry Neck Boulevard. And our contractors and the DOT are constantly working together to see how those two projects can minimize delays and be a safe environment for the traveling public. And all the way north of 17, we have north of the IOP connector, we have 5 miles of widening that is ongoing right now. And that's going very smoothly. And so it's about another year and a half, 18 months, all these projects will be completed. There's also another phase of Bowman that'll go from the bridge over here all the way to Rifle Range. That'll start probably within the next 4 or 5 months.
How do you deal with folks in the public who say, enough is enough already? I wish you'd get all of these cans and all this stuff off the street and just let us go.
Well, we do deal with those folks, and we basically the only thing I can say is be patient. We're not a growing community without some of the pains of growing. And one of the things we have to do is address our infrastructure, and that's one thing we're doing. And like I said, we're very fortunate to be able to do that. A lot of
You think
communities
the public's
can't.
going to be happy later?
I think they'll be very happy later.
You think so? We've gotten lots of information from Brad Morrison, and I hope it's understood that everything that possibly can be done is being done. But now we want to go back to Mayor Swales. He tells us more about this project and what it's going to mean to the community.